Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. You want me to tell you every tuner I hear as a high school teacher, okay? This was fun for me and I was shocked how long it was allowed to go on for. I'm a high school teacher of an elective subject that lots of kids take and enjoy. I build great relationships and generally have the same kids for multiple years, so I get all of the tea spilled to me. There was an incident during an after-school event. I was in one space doing my thing and some students who had been in another part of the building came in and said, "Mr. Taronk, there are people having sex in this other room." I follow them to the scene of the crime and there is nobody there. I do all of the appropriate follow-up to see if anything actually went down, but no body, no crime, and no one actually saw anything. They just said they saw the couple come out of the room and it smelled like sex when they went in after. Also, no cameras in the part of the building in question, a thing I had pointed out as a problem multiple times in the past. Fast forward like 4 months and the principal calls me down to their office. They proceed to chew me out for not reporting the incident, it having finally made its way through the rumor mill up to the top. I tell them all of the steps I took to follow up at the time and that it didn't seem like there was anything to report. The room didn't smell like sex to me, so it didn't occur to me to tell anyone about it. To be fair, it was early in my career, so maybe I was wrong. I ask them, in what I assumed would be received rhetorically, so where is the line on what unverified, evidence-free rumors I should be reporting? And they respond, all of them. Cue malicious compliance. I proceed to call and email them after every single conversation I have with a kid that could be even remotely construed as problematic. We are talking a minimum of 3 times a day, usually more for 3 weeks straight, including weekends. The most satisfying was on a Friday afternoon at about 4:45. The principal picks up the phone and before I can say a word they say, "Okay, Mr. Taronk, you've made your point. Next story. Same punishment for being 5 minutes late as being 3 hours late?" Sure, no problem. So I'm working for a low-level corporation, about 450 employees. I've been there for 5 years and have risen to the top of my department's productivity levels. I mention this as it does pertain to the story. Management had a policy that latecomers would be penalized, but that lateness could be excused under some circumstances. I was good at my job, and I actually loved doing it, so I was more or less a dream employee. I always showed up to work 20 to 30 minutes early because I liked to sit in the lunchroom and prepare for my day. Management knew I was almost always early, so if I was late from time to time, and such instances were rare, they'd let it slide, as there was always a valid reason. Now for some other employees this latitude wasn't applied. Chronically late employees would get written up and not have their constant lateness excused. They'd complain, of course, but management was firm. They ran an actual meritocracy, where more productive employees would experience preferential treatment. Then the business gets sold and we get new management. An international corp only interested in buying us up, stripping us down and selling off the company. Of course, they denied this constantly, but the fact that over the next 2 years they stripped us down and sold off the company proved they were lying. New management comes in and has to make a bunch of idiotic changes. One of those changes is that no reasons for being late are accepted, regardless of validity. Anyone 5+ minutes late for work would be written up. So at the team meeting where this is explained, I asked, so if someone is 5 minutes late and someone else is 3 hours late, the punishment is the same? And they said yes. From that day on, I stopped coming in early. I'd still head to work at my usual time, but I sat in a local coffee shop instead of my work's lunchroom. This meant that my work missed out because in the past I would often help out by answering questions, even start work early if needed. Because I loved my job, and the old management were wonderful bosses. No more of that under new management. In fact, if something happened, like unexpectedly bad traffic, and I was going to end up being a few minutes late, I'd just say F it. If being 3 hours late is the same punishment as 5 minutes late, I'd just decide to come in later. I'd call work to tell them I was delayed, then go out and have a leisurely meal in a restaurant, or run some personal errands, go shopping, even see a movie, etc. Depending on my mood, and how crappy the new management had been lately, what would have been, say, a 7-minute lateness on my part would end up seeing me roll in 3 hours late. Sure, it cost me a few bucks, but I made almost as much in bonuses than I did in hourly salary, so missing out on a few hours here and there didn't bother me too much. I'd come in 3 or 4 hours late and my new bosses would be fuming. Nothing they could do though but write me up for the basic tardy, same as they would have if I was 5 minutes late. Next story. How a local doctor got the best malicious compliance against my boss. Somewhere around 2007 I was working as a drugstore manager. Running the entire front store and the pharmacy, pay was excellent for someone who was in their early to mid-20s, but the job was also soul-crushing in some stupid ways. A rule came down that cashiers can no longer have drinks at the register. They can drink on their lunch breaks and otherwise shouldn't need water. At the same time they dialed back the AC so the store was constantly uncomfortably warm but not technically dangerous. I had some of the best staff. One lady was roughly 65 and came to me to let me know she was on medicine that gave her dry mouth, so she needed me to know if I took her water away she would really have a hard time being able to talk to customers. She almost developed a lisp when she couldn't have her water. I told her no worries, have your water, I'll deal with my boss when he sees you someday. Because he was running 40 stores and mine was generally not a problem store, he only came by every 60 days or so. Eventually he does swing in and asks her about her water. She says I have a medical condition and I told her it was fine. I also told him I had approved the water. He pulls me into the office to let me know that for her to have that water she needs a doctor's note. If he sees her with it again without a note we both get written warnings. He explains this is because not following the company rule can't be a decision made by me. I'm flabbergasted. I'm just the manager in charge of the store. This company literally made me do drills on how to deal with bombs or shootings, but I can't approve a bottle of water? It must be an exception deemed necessary for medical needs. I explain this is stupid. He actually agrees but says he's also following orders from above. Great. I pull my cashier aside and tell her what's up. I said I'm really sorry, but can she please just get her doctor to fax a stupid note over so we can cover our butts? She got a little gleam in her eye and I was excited to see what it meant. Her next shift she rolls in and says you are going to love this. She hands me about 100 copies of a letter that says something along the lines of, I do solemnly state that cashier is medically a human being and requires water on regular intervals while working and not solely during breaks. This was a massive waste of my time and your company should be ashamed of yourself. I will be recommending your competitor as much as humanly possible to my patients who fill prescriptions in this town for the rest of my natural life. Doctor. The next 40 were identical letters, each with a different staff member listed as my genius cashier has snagged an old schedule with first names and last initials. The rest had a blank space for me to fill in new hire names so our staff could all have drinks on the sales floor. My boss wasn't even mad. None of the higher-ups above him ever mentioned it on a store walk, so I assume it was covered in a meeting of people higher up than me. Next story. Manager says to be off the clock by 1 p.m. I work in a barbecue restaurant as the pitmaster, so I run the smokers and handle all raw meat preparation. I have to get there by 5 or 6 a.m. depending on the day in order to have food ready to open the restaurant at 11. Well, the general manager decided she was spending too much on labor and needed to cut my hours. As such, she told me at around 2 p.m. on a Thursday the following, I need you to clock out by 1 p.m. every day no matter what. I asked for it in writing and got it. So the next day, I went to the head chef when I got there that the general manager said I had to be out by 1 p.m. no matter what, and showed him the signed note. I set an alarm on my phone and got to work. I got through all the prep for the next day and was starting on the cleaning when my alarm went off. Now the pit area looked awful. The walls had some smoke stains that come off pretty easily with degreaser, but build up over time. The cooler floor had some blood on it that needed to be cleaned up before it spoiled and started smelling bad. My table had some seasoning left on it from where I seasoned the pork for the overnight load. The walls still had bits of skin, gristle, etc. stuck to them. The trash can was full. I told the head chef it was 1 p.m. and I had to go. He looked in the pit and said, "Yep. This is what I expected." But he let me clock out and go. This goes on for about a week, with the pit looking worse and worse each day. Then the district manager comes in on my day off. The head chef told me that the district manager immediately started on the general manager for the pit looking awful and how the pitmaster needed to stay until the pit was clean no matter what. So I got it in writing and am now currently working to about 2:30 p.m. every day doing the full cleaning I was doing before again. LOL. Next story. Lady uses sushi as revenge from her husband. Quite a few years ago, I did a sushi class in a culinary school. It was for enthusiasts, but it wasn't your average basic class. It lasted 1 week, Monday to Friday 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We learned everything from rice making to filleting the fish. It was really cool. After 2 p.m., we typically ate the sushi we prepared with the professor or, if you had to leave, put it in a recipient and take it with you. There was this lady, let's call her Mean Sushi, who didn't stay to eat the sushi, and she didn't took it either. It was rather odd. Come Friday, last day, during a mid-morning break we asked her about this and she told us that the class was her final act of mutual consent against her soon-to-be ex-husband. She said something like this. I hate sushi, I can't stand it, but my husband loves it, it's his favorite food. I'm a stay-at-home wife and I've cooked for both of us every single day we've been married. Husband has always been very vocal about me not cooking sushi for him, and whenever we go out, it typically is to a sushi place and I have to have whatever is on the menu that's not sushi. Last time we went out, to a sushi place with friends, one of the friends asked me about this sushi thing, and my husband replied, oh, she's not that into it, but I'll bet she'd grow into it if she starts eating and cooking it regularly. I've told her several times about this sushi class that I wanted her to attend. I'm pretty sure that, if she understands how it's made, she'll end up loving it, and I said yes for the first time in God knows how many times he's asked me to take the sushi class. He was ecstatic, and on the way back home he told me I knew that, if I insisted enough, you'd finally see my point. What he didn't know is that I've already filled the divorce papers, for several reasons. They're being delivered today. And I intend to post photos of myself making sushi and gorgeous homemade sushi dishes for weeks once I leave the house until the divorce is over. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.